command of the security force here that his father had commanded. Only the outbreak of the war, which caused a quick call-up of all available trained men, pulled him away from the routes he desired. I would have undoubtedly followed his example, save that those 10 years of conflict wherein we were more or less divorced from space kept me at home. My mother, who had been of a Techneer family, died even before my father lifted with his command, and I spent the years with the Ahrens. Imbert Ahren was head of the Kinvet station, and my mother's cousin, my only kin on Beltane. He was an earnest man, one who achieved results by patient, dogged work rather than through any flashes of brilliance. In fact, he was apt to be suspicious of unorthodox methods and the yielding to hunches on the part of subordinates, though, give him his due, he only disapproved mildly and did nothing to limit any gropings on their part. His wife, Ronalda, was truly brilliant in her field and more intolerant of others. We did not see much of her, since she was buried in some obtuse research. The running of the household fell early on Annette, who was but a year younger than I. In addition, there was Githa, who usually was to be found with a reading tape and who had as little domestic interest as her mother. It must be that the specialization that grew more and more necessary as my species entered space had, in a fashion, mutated us, though that might be argued against by the very people most affected. Though I was tutored and urged to choose work that would complement the labors of the station, I had no aptitude for any of it. In the end, I was studying, in a discontinuous manner, toward a rangership in one of the reserves, an occupation Ahren believed I might just qualify for, when the war, which had not affected us very directly, at last came to a dreary end. There was no definite victory, only a weary drawing apart of the opponents from exhaustion. Then began the interminable peace talks, which led to a few clean-cut solutions. Our main concern was that Beltane now seemed forgotten by the powers that had established it. Had we not long before turned to living off the land, and the land been able to furnish us with food and clothing, we might have been in desperate straits. Even the biannual government ships, to which our commerce and communication had sunk in the last years of the war, had now twice failed to arrive, so that when a ship finally planeted, it was cause for rejoicing, until the authorities discovered it was in no way an answer to our needs, but rather was a fifth-rate tramp hastily commandeered to bring back a handful of those men who had been drafted off-world during the conflict. Those veterans were indeed the halt and the blind, casualties of the military machine. Among these was Grislugard. Although he had been a very close part of my childhood, the second in command of the force my father had led starward, I did not know him as he limped away from the landing ramp. His small flight bag seemed too great a burden for his stick-thin arms, as its weight pulled him a little to one side and added to the unsteadiness of his gait. He glanced up as he passed, then dropped that bag. His hand half went out, and the mouth of a part-restored face, easy to mark by the too smooth skin, grimaced. Then his hand went to his head, moving across his eyes as one who would brush aside a mist, and I knew him by the band on his wrist, now far too loose. I'm Vere, I said quickly. And you are... I saw the rank badges on the collar of his faded and patched tunic. Sector Captain Lugard. Vere. He repeated the name as if his mind fumbled back through identification. Vere. Why, you're Sim's son. But, you might be Sim. He stood there blinking at me, and then, raising his head, he turned to give his surroundings a slow, searching stare. Now he gazed as if he saw more than his boots raising planet dust. It's been a long time, he said in a low, tired voice. A long, long time. His shoulders hunched and he stooped for the bag he had dropped, but I had it before him. Where away, sir? There were the old barracks, but no one had lived there for at least 5 years, and they were used for storage. Lugard's family were all dead or gone. I decided that, whether Annette had room or not, he could guest with us. But he was looking beyond me to the southwest hills and to the mountains beyond those. Do you have a flitter, Sim, Vere? He corrected himself. I shook my head. They're first priority now, sir. We don't have parts to repair them all. Best I can do is a hard-duty hopper. And I knew I was breaking the rules to use that. But Grislugard was one of my own, and it had been a long time since I had had contact with someone from my past. Sir, if you wish to guest, I continued. He shook his head. When you've held to a memory for some time,